Hope you're having a nice holiday. I'm John Stark from ActionMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I'm finishing out my Santa Claus trilogy reviews with Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, because everything needs to be a trilogy. Um, yeah, the second one made money, and so Disney was like, why not a third? What would we do for the third? They asked themselves. Not very hard or very long because they kind of the distance between 2 and 3 in terms of sequels is much shorter than the distance between 1 and 2. So again, we have the returning cast. Kudos to them for getting everybody to come back, by the way, multiple times. And we have the entire main cast from the first film, except for obviously the original children who were elves. That would be hilarious if it kept all of them and they're like much older now. And it's like, what happened? The elves aren't short anymore. Um, David Krumholtz Bedard is here for briefly, uh, not much, and Spencer Breslin kind of takes over. Uh, the, like I mentioned in my review for the second one, it always feels like that they're passing the torch to Spencer Breslin so that he can be the head elf because David's like, I'm an adult now. Um, and arguably so is Charlie at this point. But uh, they are there's this whole thing, and they added the Charlie's little half sister, who's still adorable in the third movie. She was still a great choice for the second movie. We still have Carol, and Carol's looking at she's pregnant and she's gonna have a baby, which that's the TV series if you really want to dive into that and see see where they go with that. Um, but the really sort of interesting cast additions here are the talent that they got between Alan Arkin and Margaret and Martin Short. Like those are three people. This film should work. Like they went out and got three just like home runs in terms of casting. So Alan and Anne both play the parents to Carol, Elizabeth Mitchell's character, who are invited out to the North Pole to spend time because Scott's busy. It's Christmas. He's Santa. But they're trying to pretend like he's not Santa for a while. Like they don't want to let them. They can't let everybody know. Um, so he's like, the grandparents are like walking around the toy shop and like, what is it that you get? Oh, I see. And you know, they don't quite understand what it is. And you've got Martin Short playing Jack Frost, who's trying to like weasel his way in to working for Santa because he's got evil plans. But mustache twirling plans because of a mustache. And this film also introduces like the rest of the like the what do I want to call them? The Guardians. When I think of Rise of the Guardians, I mean like the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, Mother Nature, like all of those characters who are all here for like a hot second because I think they were trying to like Avengers the Santa Claus. If they made a fourth movie, I wonder what it would look like. They all kind of come back for the TV series. So like they lean into that a little bit more with the idea that there are all of these characters. It's almost like they were going to spin it off into universes. You know what I'm saying? Where like Disney could have had an Easter Bunny movie. The problem is that they didn't cast any of these roles other than with Martin Short in any sort of with like actors who felt like they would have stepped into their own movies. You know, they're not such cool cameos where you're like, oh my god, that person is the Easter Bunny. Of course, I can see Disney making that movie. Or that person is the Tooth Fairy. Of course, I can see Disney making that movie. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like these characters are all there to just cameo in Escape Clause. So, yeah, this just doesn't really work for me. I know it works for some people and they love it, and uh, I enjoy Martin Short. I love Martin Short. I love the fact that he's here. He had previously worked with Tim Allen before in Jungle to Jungle. I remember that. So I think this was like a phone call. I think it was a friendship thing. We always equate Martin Short and Steve Martin as being like best friends, but I think Martin Short clearly has this has a dynamic with Tim Allen as well. And you can see sort of this film has outtakes where the other films did not. And you can see that sort of back and forth between Tim and Martin uh, in the outtakes too. And uh, I mean, Martin does what he can with the role. It's just written. Some just doesn't have a great script behind it. Same thing with the with Alan Arkin and Anne Margaret. I mean, they're great actors. Uh, the script just doesn't give them much to do. Like it doesn't really give anybody anything to do. The moment when Scott makes the wish that sets everything back is so forced. It is so random. Anyway, this movie has audio description, and much like the second film, it's one that is obviously commissioned by Disney. It's not made by the Department of Education, which made the audio description for the first movie, and it has all of the whimsical nature behind it the second film had. I didn't really notice it. It's different. Two and three are not the exact same, but I didn't really notice any sort of difference in quality between the second and third film. I literally marathoned the Santa Claus in one day, all three films. So even though it shifted, I didn't notice a real change in quality between the second and third film. So um, both of them feel appropriately aimed at kids. They don't use big words that kids are going to have to ask. What does that mean? I don't know. So this one gets kind of goofier. So I feel like two and three with their elements, with with the toy soldier element in two, and then this one with I don't know, like everything Jack is trying to do, and the incorporation of all of the other mythological creatures really aims at a younger audience. I think they're distancing parents more and more and leaning more into the fact that there are kids who grew up and might have little kids now, so they're hoping that nostalgia will continue to hold over. It kind of works. It worked a little bit for the second film. It works less here for the third film. Pretty much the thing that saves this from me is the fact that their cast additions were really solid, and that goes back to casting. I mean, Alan Arkin, Anne Margaret, Martin Short, three solid cast additions who have a decent amount of stuff. I'm not talking about the cameos. I'm just talking about three people who actually have a substantial part in this movie. And I wouldn't ding any of them. They're all great actors. So they all bring something, even when offered nothing. It's amazing. So, and you still have the adorable little girl from the second movie because they didn't wait very long, she's still young. So she still has all of that Christmas childlike wonder to her. And so a couple little things like that sort of keep this movie floating, but it's definitely not my favorite Christmas movie. This is, I think, maybe the third time I've seen it. It's the first time I've seen it with audio description because I've never been motivated. But I did it because of the 30th anniversary of the original Santa Claus. So now I have all three of them. It's done. It's out there on Christmas Eve. So sharing the holiday classics. If this is your holiday classic, that's okay. You can have whatever holiday classic you want. I think it's all about when people grow up anyway. It probably means you're younger. I don't tend to have a channel that leans younger, but I think people are wanting me to review maybe like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or White Christmas or other films. But um, yeah, that's it. So uh, I'm I'm gonna give the Santa Claus 3, the Escape Clause. I'm gonna give it a C plus. That feels about right. Yeah, it's a slight thumbs up. Uh, again, the three new people were handed coal and turned it into a Christmas present. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.